The origins of the American Revolution can be traced to the aftermath of the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. Great Britain emerged victorious but heavily indebted. To alleviate financial burdens, the British government imposed new taxes on its American colonies. The Sugar Act of 1764 was the first of these measures, taxing imported goods like sugar, coffee, and textiles. The Stamp Act of 1765 went further, requiring colonists to pay for stamps on legal documents, newspapers, and other printed materials. This was met with fierce opposition, as colonial leaders argued that these taxes violated their rights as Englishmen, who could only be taxed by their own elected representatives. Resistance began to take organized form. Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty led protests in Massachusetts, including public demonstrations and boycotts of British goods. The Stamp Act Congress convened in 1765, uniting representatives from several colonies to petition for its repeal. Though Parliament rescinded the Stamp Act in 1766, it simultaneously passed the Declaratory Act, asserting Britain's right to legislate for the colonies in all cases whatsoever. Tensions escalated with the Townshend Acts of 1767, imposing duties on imports like glass, paper, and tea. Colonial resistance, led by figures like John Dickinson and his influential letters from a farmer in Pennsylvania, led to widespread boycotts. British troops were stationed in Boston to enforce order, creating a volatile atmosphere. On March 5, 1770, this tension erupted into violence with the Boston Massacre, where British soldiers fired into a crowd, killing 5 colonists, including Crispus Attucks, a man of African and Native American descent. The event was widely publicized by propagandists like Paul Revere, further inflaming anti-British sentiment. The situation worsened with the Tea Act of 1773, designed to aid the struggling British East India Company by allowing it to sell tea directly to the colonies, undercutting colonial merchants. This led to the Boston Tea Party on December 16, 1773, where the Sons of Liberty, disguised as Mohawk Indians, boarded British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. This act of defiance prompted the British government to pass the Coercive Acts, known in America as the Intolerable Acts, in 1774. These punitive measures included closing Boston Harbor until the tea was paid for and revoking the Massachusetts Charter, effectively placing the colony under martial law. Colonial leaders responded by convening the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia in September 1774. Delegates such as George Washington, Patrick Henry, and John Adams debated responses, ultimately deciding to issue a Declaration of Rights and Grievances and to organize a boycott of British goods. These measures marked the first steps toward unified colonial resistance. The punitive measures of the Intolerable Acts galvanized the colonies, fostering unity and resistance. As tensions mounted, colonial militias, known as Minutemen, began preparing for potential conflict. The British, under General Thomas Gage, sought to suppress this growing unrest by seizing colonial weapon stores. On the night of April 18, 1775, Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott embarked on their famous midnight rides to war the countryside of the approaching British troops. The first shots of the Revolution were fired at Lexington on April 19, 1775. Captain John Parker and approximately 70 Minutemen faced off against a British force of 700 soldiers. The skirmish left 8 Americans dead and marked the beginning of armed conflict. The British continued to Concord, where they encountered heavier resistance. By the end of the day, colonial militias had forced the British to retreat to Boston, suffering heavy losses along the way. These early battles were followed by the Siege of Boston, where colonial forces, led by generals like Artemas Ward, encircled the city to prevent British reinforcements. The Battle of Bunker Hill on June 17, 1775, was a significant moment in this early phase of the war. Although technically a British victory, the heavy losses they sustained demonstrated the resolve and capability of the colonial forces. During this time, the Second Continental Congress convened in May 1775, appointing George Washington as commander-in-chief of the newly formed Continental Army. As the conflict escalated, the colonies began to shift from seeking reconciliation to advocating for independence. Thomas Paine's Common Sense, published in January 1776, played a crucial role in changing public opinion. The pamphlet argued eloquently for independence, criticizing monarchy and advocating for a republic. Its widespread distribution galvanized support for the revolutionary cause. On July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence. 2 days later, on July 4th, the Declaration of Independence, primarily authored by Thomas Jefferson, was adopted. This historic document outlined the colony's grievances against King George III and articulated their right to self-governance. Its bold assertion that all men are created equal became a foundational principle of the new nation. The war entered a critical phase following the Declaration of Independence. The British aimed to crush the rebellion by capturing key cities and isolating New England. In 1776, they launched a massive campaign, forcing Washington's army to retreat from New York. Despite these setbacks, Washington achieved a surprising victory at the Battle of Trenton on December 26, 1776, after crossing the icy Delaware River. This bold move reinvigorated the American cause and boosted morale. The following years saw pivotal battles. The British strategy to divide the colonies failed at Saratoga in 1777, where American forces, led by General Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold, defeated General John Burgoyne's army. This victory convinced France to formally ally with the United States, providing vital military and financial support. The contributions of foreign leaders like Marquis de Lafayette and Baron von Steuben proved invaluable in training and organizing the Continental Army. The war shifted to the south in 1780, where British forces under General Charles Cornwallis captured Charleston, South Carolina. However, American resistance, led by Nathanael Greene and Daniel Morgan, employed guerrilla tactics and won crucial battles like Cowpens in January 1781. Greene's strategic maneuvers weakened British control in the region. The turning point came with the Siege of Yorktown in 1781. Washington, with the help of French forces under General Rochambeau and the French Navy under Admiral de Grasse, trapped Cornwallis's army. After weeks of bombardment, Cornwallis surrendered on October 19, 1781. This decisive victory effectively ended major combat operations. Negotiations for peace began in 1782, culminating in the Treaty of Paris, signed on September 3, 1783. American negotiators Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay secured favorable terms, including recognition of independence and significant territorial gains. With the war concluded, the newly independent states faced the daunting task of nation-building. The Articles of Confederation, adopted in 1781, provided a loose framework for governance but proved inadequate due to its lack of central authority. Economic instability and political unrest, exemplified by Shays' Rebellion in 1786, highlighted the need for a stronger federal government. In 1787, the Constitutional Convention convened in Philadelphia, where leaders like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton drafted the United States Constitution. Ratified in 1788, it established a system of checks and balances and a stronger central government. George Washington's inauguration as the first president on April 30, 1789, marked the beginning of the new republic. The American Revolution's impact extended far beyond its borders. It inspired revolutionary movements in France, Haiti, and Latin America, demonstrating the power of ideas like liberty and self-governance. However, its promises of equality remained unfulfilled for many. Women, African Americans, and Native Americans sought inclusion in the new nation's ideals, sparking ongoing struggles for civil rights. The revolution's legacy endures as a testament to the resilience and determination of those who fought for independence. Its principles continue to shape the United States and inspire people around the world in their quest for freedom and justice.